Yeah. Is this the first time you guys have worked together?
No.
It's the first time I've seen you on screen personally. Together.
We've worked 3 times together.
Okay.
Wild at Heart, then Shadow the Vampire, and now this.
Wow.
But on screen, Wild at Heart, where Nick was the David Lynch movie.
Right.
What year?
Oh God, I don't
90?
remember. Was it late 80s?
Yeah, late 80s, 90. It won the Palme d'Or here.
Yeah.
Nick was great in it. I had a fantastic part. It's a David Lynch film.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I remember
We were
seeing
here.
you
It
in
was
that.
a lot of fun because we were in the audience and some people were booing and some people were cheering. It was the most polarizing movie I think I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, that's a bit scary, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
you
but
can't-
it went ahead and got the prize, so it all worked out. But yeah, it just, you know you're doing something different when that reaction happens.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there was Paul Winding Refn said in the press conference yesterday. You know, films are all about getting a reaction.
Yes.
And creativity, and you know, he said it's pointless watching a film that doesn't do anything for you just to pass time. And I thought that was a really interesting thing.
Yeah,
to
there
say.
was it in that movie Tootsie? I don't know. Bill Murray had a line like that. He was a play director, and he said, "I don't want people to go, this was a genius play. I'm paraphrasing, or a great play. I want people to look back and think 15 years later, what the fuck was that?"
Yeah, exactly right. And I thought this movie had definitely. It starts off so powerfully, and throughout I was on the edge of my seat, and it certainly got a reaction. What was it that attracted you guys?
You know, I've worked with Paul many times. I knew Nick was going to play Troy. I've always read Eddie Bunker's work. I even made a film of his one of his novels before. So that world interested me, and then the character was interesting. So it kind of, all the boxes were ticked. It was an opportunity to work with people that inspire me and I like working with, and with good material. With very modest resources, but also if you sign on, you embrace that and try to turn it into something good.
I agree with all of that. And also when I read the script, I had just come off of Dying of the Light with Paul. And that movie was a bit of a heartbreak for both of us. I'm sure you know the story, that it was taken from Paul and recut in such a way that he couldn't really put his name on it. So when he came to me with this, it was an opportunity to really, get final cut for Paul and to try our hands at this yet again. And when I read the script, I thought it had this very unique, non-linear narrative that I thought Paul could do something quite magical with. He kept saying it was funny. I have to be direct. When I read it, I didn't think it was funny at all, but he always maintained that it was funny. And I thought that in itself was unique, that Paul had something up his sleeve, or was going to pull a rabbit out of his hat on this one. And I wanted to get with him again, and then when Paul brought Willem into it, I thought, Willem is as good as it gets, so I have to do this.
Yeah. So what was the dynamics like between the two?
You're so sweet, Nick.
No, it's a true story. I'm not
No,
a
it's
fan
true.
of a lot of actors. I'm a fan of this guy.
Yeah,
So when I knew if I was in the same room with him that we would be on our game 100%, so we could stay on the screen together.
Yeah. So that was a good dynamic. You enjoyed that?
Oh
right?
yeah. I like working with people that I find extraordinary.
Yeah. And so when you were acting this out, you must have realised then that the humour coming through.
Well, yeah, there were little moments like see, I'm more of a jazz actor. I'm not always by the book, and I know that can be a little bit challenging for other actors that I work with. But I think being by the book is a good thing, because then you get the scene as it's written. But sometimes you can play. Once you get it in the can where it's per the script, great. But then let's play. And Willem and I would find the humor in moments within the context of the reality of the scene, not just to get a laugh. But there was one moment in particular that I thought we could get some humor out of, which is when the baby is in the crib and we're trying to find the binky or what the pacifier, and I don't know what to call it, and then he came up with a dick. And so that was like, he was like, "What can we really do?" I said, "Yes, we got to do that." And then I was so happy when we saw the picture last night, people were laughing, and it's just so, it's the darkest humor, but it's funny.
I know. I got a big laugh in the press screening as well. So that was improvised.
We improvised in the rehearsal to find it, but I knew it was there. We had to uncover it though.
Yeah.
And one nice thing is, there's this structure in the story where it's a group of 3 guys, and he's the leader, and It's balanced. So when Nick was talking about being a jazz actor, he's the leader of the group. So he's kind of setting the tone. And I'm not the brightest. My character is not the brightest guy in the world. And I think he's given me all my jobs. He's given me a family. He's given me lots of stuff. So I very look up to him. So when I kind of follow him, and I try to contribute every once in a while. So for better and for worse. So that's kind of a nice dynamic already in the narrative, as far as character relationships. Yeah. So I could sit back and watch Nick and see what he was, go wherever he went, and then try to hop on and hop off the train. It was cool. I liked it.
That's a Miles Davis approach, where they wouldn't even rehearse, and he would come in and choose his jazz members, and then they would start playing, improvising, and then he would come in and put a lid on everything and find the theme within the improvisation. And they'd never met before, some of these musicians. But one of the things that I liked in the scene that happened instinctively without rehearsal was the moment where we're putting the nanny in locking her up, and I give her, I'm explaining what we're going to do with the cell phone or something like that. And then Willem sort of grunts this thing and says something, and I said, well, you like that, huh? So that relationship was just riffing off of one another and what he was talking about. Yeah. And I always think Troy kind of looked at Dog as like the love you would have for one of your pets. Like there was a love there. The dog was his affection. Yeah. So when Dog dies, it's a pretty hard blow for him.
That's right. And I think, but also, I mean, you say that you were kind of the leader of the band, but the scene at the beginning of the film kind of sets the tension with, that's quite integral, isn't it? To the Now then, I think the audience is then on the edge of their seat for the rest of the film, aren't they? Because I'm sure what's going to sort of transpire.
Certainly sets the tone.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite heavily stylized, the film. Yeah. When you were working on it, did you have a vision of what it was going to be like, or was that completely in Paul's hand?
I'll tell you, when you walk into a room and it's totally pink and full of My Little Pony and bobbleheads and all this kind of weird decoration, and it's going to be the scene of a gruesome, violent act, something's up.
I love the phone ringing on the wall like that. I mean, that was like a dream.
Yeah, I know.
It's also, when we're talking about how we're working, this, when people talk, it's not so interesting to talk about budgets and all that kind of thing, but we were working in a way that was kind of fast and down and dirty, and sometimes that liberates you. Because then the problem solving and of seeing and just realizing stuff kind of catches up with the narrative, and they become one. And it's you don't sit back, get a chance to sit back and reflect so much. You just kind of dive in, and if it starts to work and if the chemistry is right, then the actual making of the film, the shooting of the film, starts to get a rhythm that you can't stop. It just keeps on going, and that train keeps on going. And I had the sense with this, a very modest production, but once it kind of kicked in, it kind of pushed along and defined itself. There wasn't that kind of carefulness that sometimes you have with greater resources and a more industry film. So that kind of scrappiness defined the world, and it also defined our performances, and it's defined the tone. So you can never repeat that, but it's a good lesson to know to turn your it's an obvious thing to say, but to turn your challenges into assets.
Yeah, I mean, when you have less money, it forces you to be more creative. I mean, going way back, like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, I mean, those marvelous, surrealistic sets were made out of cardboard because they didn't have Murnau didn't have the money. But
on some of those early noirs where they just, the studio, since they were considered B movies and not big money makers, sometimes they couldn't get the enough lamps to light a scene properly, so they'd have to light them with matches and candles and natural light. That really defined the aesthetic.
Yeah.
And
I'm not sure Murnau directed that, by the way, just for the record. I thought, because we did
No, he
Nosferatu.
didn't.
He didn't, no, he didn't direct it.
So,
Confused.
would you guys, have you got a similar approach to acting? Have you got the same kind of process? There was a press conference with Russell Crowe earlier on in the festival, and he said he does the Russell Crowe technique, which obviously got a bit of a reaction. How would you describe your process?
Are you gonna take this?
yeah, my thing is, and I get sick of myself saying it, so I'm starting to wonder whether it's really true. It's just a line, but with every movie it's different.
Yeah.
Because your job is different, what you have to do, how you fit into the fabric of the thing that you're making is different. So it's always different. And I often take my key off the director, and I think, I kind of like to work the way they work. So that it's always different, and that's part of the pleasure, actually, because I don't think there's such a thing as, when Russell Crowe says, Russell Crowe approach, I get it. I mean, I smile because, you do what makes you, engages you, and it's your way. I don't believe there's a method that can be universally applied. There's a technique or a school of teaching performing. I think you have to find your own way.
And how about for you?
Well, I mean, I always feel a little bit embarrassed when I try to express my methods, and I walk away ashamed after I say it. So I'm trying to keep it in and not let it out. But you're asking me a question on camera, so. I've said things in the past, Well, I read a book called The Way of Weird by Professor Brian Bates, and also he wrote The Way of the Actor, where he put forth the notion that all actors, whether they know it or not, actually hail all the way back pre-Christianity to the village shamans, and that what the shaman would do was to go into flights of the imagination to find answers to give to the people in the village. And he said that film actors do the same thing in storytelling, that we try to reflect what's happening in the village or in the world per se, or the country that you live in, blah, 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 and bring that so that people get answers to their own life experiences. So I would think about that. So what does that mean? Well, that just means to rely heavily on one's imagination. So for me, film performance, there is some choreography to it, but also I think that I'd like to get to the place where there's no acting, so that I open myself up to whatever's in the ether, whether it's a dream from the night before or some thought that I have that I visualize, and it becomes reality for me in the moment, in the context of the scene and the character. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. And I suppose that opens you up to then be able to, improvise, as you spoke about already.
Yeah, well, I think all art on some level aspires to be music. For me, music is the highest art form. But so I think that film acting also aspires to be music. So you find the music when you're working with people who have a sound and a style, and you try to pick up on that and make the jazz.
Thanks very much. I've had 2 taps now, so I've definitely got to stop.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Sure.
Okay. For a long time.
I came here quite a bit. When Josie Kopp was running it, I was invited, I think, 4 times. And then Terry Famo came in, and I wasn't invited since. And in fact, Terry did not invite me this time, because I'm not in the main section. So, but I've been doing Venice, Berlin, Telluride, and so forth.
Yeah. And I heard that this film, did you rush to get it here? Is that right? What was the process? Because I believe it was finished quite recently. Is that right?
Well, on Monday.
Monday, wow.
So, we finished it on Monday, and I went to the airport. And so that left about 4 days of a buffer between finishing the film and having it judged, which is kind of tight. Usually you have a couple months to sort of come to terms with the fact that other people may not like your baby, because you bring this new baby home and then people say, God, what an ugly baby. So, if you have a few months to deal with that, it's easier.
Yeah. So have you seen it on the big screen before?
No, here was the first time.
That's incredible. So you must have been a bit nervous, surely.
Well, I'm not a young man.
No, sure. But I loved it. I thought it was a real ride. There was I've mentioned this to your actors as well. There was a quote from Nicholas Winding Refn about films, and he says if they don't create a reaction or get a reaction, then there's no point in watching them, and yours certainly did, I think. And is that what you kind of set out to do? What was the starting point?
Well, to make a crime film in 2016, you have to take into effect the kind of history of the genre, because there have been so many of them, and there's been a progression of styles. And I was trying to make what I called a post-rules film. In that there was a generation that made the rules. There was my generation that broke the rules, Tarantino's generation that laughed at the rules, and now there's a generation that doesn't know there ever were rules. And that's who I was looking for. Because when you say, let's think outside the box, you're already in the box. And I wanted people who didn't know there was a box. So I got a whole group of young talents from different fields, and video games and fashion and so forth, and said, let's just imagine, Yeah. And in fact, I was just looking at this now, and this was last summer. Because we would meet every week, and that's my heads. Those are the heads of my departments.
Right, yeah, some young guys there, yeah.
So, it looked like a film class. You want to zoom into it? So having that kind of freedom.
Yeah.
It just encourages, I said, let's just be bold. The only thing that's forbidden is to be boring.
Yeah, that must have been quite exciting to do then.
Yeah, well, because I had Final Cut, because of this whole situation with Nick. No way Nick and I were going to do this film and have the same thing happen again.
Yeah.
So we had to have Final Cut. And then once we had Final Cut, we could do whatever we wanted.
Yeah. What I thought was brilliant about it as well, I don't want to give too much away, but the opening scene with Willem, and it doesn't turn out how I was expecting it. So then for the rest of your film, you're going, oh no, what's he going to do? So I guess, was that an intention?
Yeah. Well, the idea of that opening scene is, to give the audience, to give them an official "you can laugh" card, and say to the audience, if you're taking this seriously, you're in the wrong movie.
Yeah.
And just to be absolutely outrageous.
Yeah. We've got two great actors there, brilliant actors. I think they're two of the most iconic actors that are still, out there today, and really interesting. They always choose really interesting. Must have been great to have them together. How did they play off of each other?
Well, they both work a lot, and they're both very professional, and so that they're happy to work together because they both know the rules and they both know how to do that thing. Because like the funniest line in the film was the one about the baby. It was Nick and Willem doing that at rehearsal, and Nick was just talking around, and Willem was, and then Willem made that crack about the dick, and then Willem goes, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that." And meanwhile, we were all laughing. I said, "It's funny."
Yeah, I know, it's genius, isn't it? Dark, really dark, but genius. They talked briefly, not briefly actually, they talked quite in detail about their acting processes are quite different to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
How was that for you as a director, working with the two different sort of
Well, since
actors?
I've done quite a few things with Willem, so I know. I know there's no real surprises there.
Yeah.
Nick Willem is more loosey goosey than Nick. Nick likes to be extremely prepared, and so then I use Willem to push Nick a little bit, to get him off his preparation, because he often makes films with lesser actors, and he's just going right, boom, 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 going through his checklist of things he's going to do in this scene. And you have to have a pretty good actor to throw him in a good way, to throw him off in a way that he responds rather than gets pissed off.
Yeah. That's interesting. And for you as a director, I mean, you just mentioned before that we started rolling, you're off to take a break now. Are you already thinking about your next thing?
Yeah, I've written a script that I want to do with Ethan Hawke.
Mm-hmm.
That is the opposite of this film.
Right.
The opposite. Could not be more different.
Is that important that you kind of mix it up like that?
Well, it's a film that I've always thought I would make someday, and now I think the day is finally coming, which is a quiet film, an introspective film, a Bergman-style film.
Nice. I like the sound of that. That sounds good. I mean, you've obviously made quite a lot of films. You've been in the industry for a long time. Do you still? It's easier now, I imagine, for you to get films made, because it's kind of like a stack of cards, isn't it? You got to have the actors, you got to have the finance.
Yeah, but it's never easy.
It's still not easy.
The technology is far less expensive. So there are certain kinds of films that you can get made now that you couldn't get made before, because the films cost so little. And you have to have all these possibilities of niche markets, So you can actually make a film for $250,000. I did make a film for $250,000, Canyons, and we made money on that. But on the other hand, there's so much product, this tsunami of product. How do you get anybody to notice your film? And which is why we are here in Cannes, because there are a number of films this year with Nick Cage and Willem Dafoe, but there's only one in the festival. So it's very useful to be here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Fantastic.